Hey folks, you're listening to the best of Live 2023 by Zool. That's me. It's my project. Yeah, you can listen to that on Spotify now. I actually put it up there. So if you are not subscribed to the No Talkie Talkie channel, go ahead and link it in chat here. And you can listen to other relaxing kind of music here. New Year writing goals, day 10 already. Yeah. So let's actually talk about goals before I hop in and talk about the uncanny, feelings of the uncanny. It's important for writing a lot of genres, actually, not just horror, but what the feeling of uncanny does, how it functions, how you can use it in a story, all those sorts of things. So let's talk about goals and the process, because hey, I realized the lava lamp's not on. I should turn that on, huh? There it goes. Come on. This switch is 30 years old, starting to break. I think this thing has the same... There it goes. It has the same light bulb it shipped with in the 1990s. It was like... Same thing. I should probably get a new light bulb at some point, but like, it's still working. I don't know what they made it out of, but it's working. All right. Yeah, let's talk about goals and processes. So this is something that I've known for a long time as a musician, and I've learned it through, I guess, the hard way of not knowing what I was doing and repeatedly failing to achieve what I wanted to until I learned it's actually not that hard. It's really more about a process versus a goal. Now, I talk about this in the Keys to Prolific Creativity book, which you can get, by the way, if you join my Patreon. It's like part of the membership package. But I get a lot of that info out for free, just like on this channel. The mistake that I tend to make is to have goals, and then if you miss the goal, you start to feel bad about yourself, versus having a process where the goal is very achievable and it's more on the small term. Like, what's my goal today? Then if you fail today, it's easy to pick yourself up for tomorrow. And if you fail today, you also know why you did, right? Like, so if you have a goal of like, I'm going to write 1,000 words a day, and you are throwing up, yeah, it's okay to not write 1,000 words if you're physically ill, right? And so you say, okay, obviously I couldn't do the 1,000 words yesterday because I was sick, just like how I couldn't go lift weights because I was throwing up, or any other goal that you might have. So it's really the process that becomes the main thing there. And I picked this up, the hard way, but I also remember Scott Adams, who writes the Dilbert comics, and now I may be famous for other things, for like his political takes. And his whole thing was really just, he wrote a book called How to Fail at Everything and Still Win Big. And it was really that if you focus on the process, then you'll never have like post-project depression. You'll never have like a crisis of self that you fail to meet some goal. And you won't really ever have to let up with what you're doing. You're always doing your process. You're always working on your process, and it just goes forward. And then the results happen because of the process. So let's say your writing process is, I'm going to write 1,000 words a day. Great. You may miss, you may miss a day here or there. That's just fine, right? But over time, as long as you're like writing 1,000 words a day, you should be able to write a couple of books a year without too much difficulty. Because let's say you're going to write like a trad pub tome that's 120,000 words. My next book, by the way, is really long. I don't remember how long it is. It's 150,000 or something. It's pretty long, maybe longer. I have to go look. Just still haven't put it out, but you can blame me for procrastinating too much on editing and revision steps. But I want to actually make the product good. Anyway, that's still like 3 of those manuscripts you're putting out a year. People are like, how does Stephen King write so many books? Is that at least when he was retired, he was writing 1,500 words a day. But as a full-time writer, he's like, I just write 2,500 words a day. And it was like half a day of work for him. It wasn't even that much work, right? But over time, that yields big gains. You end up writing a lot of books. And part of that, with that process is like, okay, you write a book and it just isn't that good. Well, you're still going to open up your notebook, or you're going to open up your computer, and you're going to write another 1,000 words the next day. So even if you write a book that's subpar, or you're not super happy with it, the process just continues. You start writing the next book. And sooner or later, you're going to hit the golden book. You're going to get something that you're really pleased with. Plus, there's another element to this, and it makes me think of Ray Bradbury, because he had these things like, I'll have to look them up. You must publish what you write. You never rewrite except the editorial order, something like that. You don't know actually what people are going to really like. And I've discovered this through my writing career, is that the things which I am really excited to write are not necessarily the things which people are really excited to read. But you never know. And I usually can feel out what the market is going to think about a book before I write it. So for Al Shafalda, for instance, I held off on publishing the book for over a year, partly because it was 2020 when I finished it. And it was like all that election stuff was going on, and morale was just really low. And people, I felt like, that would want to read a story would not want to read this story. It's not escapist at all. It was very much a tragedy. So just the timing didn't feel off. So I just held on to it, and I put it out after I moved. Did I put it out after I moved or before I moved? Now I don't remember. I think I put it out. Maybe I held on to it for 2 years. I might have held on to it for 2 years. Anyway, I put it out. I know that there's like at least one person that's like, this is the best book you've ever written. But most people are just not going to be that interested in it because it doesn't fit the standard fantasy tropes. It is just a different work entirely. It's more in kind of a operatic or dramatic tradition as far as its plot. It's constructed in an older, kind of more archaic style, which was by design. That's how I wanted to tell that story. And it's a tragedy. It doesn't have a happy ending. It doesn't have an ending that most people would like. And it doesn't have a fantasy format where there's like, some farm boy going off on a grand adventure. It's about immortals basically doing high level things and then suffering horrible downfalls as they get involved with the gods themselves. So it's more mythological. It's more mythic, right? Mythological is not the right word. It's more mythic, right? It's more like Wagner and less like Robert E. Howard or even J.R.R. Tolkien, right? Less of that stuff. So I knew that most people were probably not going to like it. But you never know. There's like at least one person that's like, this is the best thing ever. And that's great. And I'm super happy that person feels that way, right? There we go. The colors feel, I like the warmer color. Feels warm. Anyway, so you never know what's going to be like the big hit, like what's really going to get people excited for what you're doing. So you got to publish it. You got to publish it even if you're like, well, it's not what I wanted. Clean it up, make it as good as you can, and publish it. Setting manageable goals is another part that I talk about in the book, besides just like, it's all about the process. What is a manageable goal? A manageable goal is like, I'm going to write a book. That's a manageable goal. And the process for being able to write that. You actually can figure that out. My wife's phone is in here beeping, I think. It's in here, sweetie.
I'm so sorry.
No worries.
I'm so sorry,
I love you.
audience. My fault.
It's okay.
Awful.
No. Oh, phone beeped. Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
It's a phone.
Do you need me to remove Aurora?
No. Oh, is she in here? Nah, I'll kick her out when she feels like being...
When she feels like being a turd?
Yeah.
Are you sleeping?
Or this monetization's not on, so I'm going to turn that on. All right.
I love you.
YouTube's going to give you mid-roll ads now. All right. I love you too.
Sorry.
All right. So yeah, what's a manageable goal? Manageable goal is like, I'm going to write a book or I'm going to write a story. And if you're good, you can say, I'm going to write a story in 3 months, or I'm going to write a story in 2 weeks, or I'm going to write a story in 1 week or 1 day or something like that. But if you just, because you could fix time, or you can fix, time, or you could fix scope. So pick one of those to fix, right? I'm going to write whatever I can in 3 months. That's kind of hard. So I usually just say, write until it's done, and then make sure that you're sticking to your process of writing at least, a couple hundred words a day, 1,000 words a day, whatever, whatever you want to do. And that's it. Now, you're not making a goal that's like, I'm going to write a best-selling book. Okay. That's not a realistic goal. It doesn't mean that you can't do that. It doesn't mean you can't try to do that. But if you set that as your goal, especially if you haven't done this, writing a best-selling book, what's going to happen when you don't do that? It's like saying, I'm going to be the ultimate fighting champion. You're going to be I'm going to be a UFC light heavyweight champion. Well, okay. At what point are you going to say you can't achieve that goal? Because there's very few of those, right? It'd be better to say, like, I want to see how far I can go. I'm going to do the best I absolutely can. Because if you set your sights on like the highest thing, that's, I'm going to sell more books than J.K. Rowling. Well, you have to have figured out how she sold as many books as she did and come up with a way that's better than everything she did and everything her publishers did and everything Hollywood did, right? Very difficult. Okay. So set a manageable goal. Like, I'm going to complete a project. I'm going to complete a project is really manageable. What's not manageable is saying, I'm going to make this project popular. I'm going to have the best of this. I'm going to win a competition. You could try. And of course you should, if you feel like doing that, you should give it your best effort, but that's not really a manageable goal. But finishing is a manageable goal. And as long as you have the process, you can do it. So I think what a lot of people break down with is that they forget the process because they have the goal, or they forget the goal because they have the process. But more often it's that they have a goal, and then when they miss a day or they fall short of that goal, then their willpower collapses. It's like, I'm going to get down to 5% body fat. That is an achievable goal, but how long are you going to take to do that? Well, I'm going to do it by June. All right, you're fixing time and scope. You better really know how to diet if you're going to get down to some low body fat percentage by June, right? Now you could do it. Like a bodybuilder could do that because he's done it a bunch of times. But if you're like a newbie, better to go like, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to see how long it takes me to get under 10% body fat or something. You got to make it a realistic goal. Like, okay, these gurus say I can lose a pound a week. I need to lose about 30 pounds. So in 30 weeks, I can lose 30 pounds. That's manageable. Okay. Not like I'm going to get completely shredded by June and you're 300 pounds. Good luck. Good habits can create good art. Yeah. That's the other thing too, is that the more you habituate your creative process, the more creative you'll be. The idea that you cannot write fast and good, it's actually the opposite. Like, the most productive people are also the most creative. And one of the reasons they're more creative is that they understand their process. They know more about their craft and therefore can do all the different little variations that we think of as being creative, part of the creative process. They feel secure with what they're doing. They know that at 9 o'clock, they're going to sit down and they're going to start writing, and kind of doing the ritual and the habit of doing it, just like a ritual of brushing your teeth, doing a ritual for your creative goals, like getting a cup of coffee and a cookie or something, sitting down at your computer and starting to write. You will find that it's easier to get into that space where you're feeling creative, you're feeling excited to write, you're coming up with new ideas. It happens a lot, right? And that's one of the things that I did on the music channel. Was I spent a month, and I'm just like, I'm going to record something every day for a month because I can do that. And the goal here is to just practice the process of like running a camera, I don't have there's no keyboards here today. My synths are in the other room because my kids were playing with them. Getting all that set up so I could just sit down and do it. And so now if I'm like, you know what, I have some musical ideas. I'm going to do a piece real quick. I'm going to do an ambient piece. Boom, plug my stuff in. It's easy. Turns on. You know, it takes me like 90 seconds to get into that creative mode, which I like a lot. So, all right, let's talk about the uncanny a little bit for this Writestream. I feel like turning down the lights for the uncanny. Yeah. Sorry. Good evening, Sound Engraver. Hope you're doing great. The uncanny. What is the uncanny? What is the uncanny? I'll be blue. There we go. That's natural. Kind of natural. Okay. What is the uncanny? So when I talk about the uncanny, what I'm talking about are things which are unsettling. They're a little bit disturbing. They are weird. They are not typical. They are things that are outside of our normal realm of expectations for how things are going to operate, how things are going to feel. In a story, the uncanny can be, you could present an uncanny feeling or invoke an uncanny feeling in the audience a number of different ways. But what the difference between like something that's straight up horrific to look at and something which is uncanny, which feels creepy, is the creepy has elements of familiar and unfamiliar in it. Oh, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Thanks for your point on humanizing the digital. Thanks for watching that one, and I appreciate it. We're talking about humanizing the digital. The whole point of what we're doing here on the internet should really be to connect with each other as human beings. And like, it makes me think of the metaverse. So I'll come back to uncanny. I'll bring uncanny into this with the metaverse, actually. So like, people make fun of the metaverse and Mark Zuckerberg and call him a reptile or whatever else. He has an uncanny look. He has that Innsmouth look, doesn't he? The Innsmouth look. For all his faults, he understands what his product can do as far as a potential to help human beings, which is to help them connect with each other and be social. That's what the technology should do. That's what the metaverse actually should do, is to reduce the distance between us. So if we're 3,000 miles away from each other, it's very expensive for us to physically move in proximity of each other. But if there's a metaverse where we could do more things with each other without having to go 3,000 miles, the price of a plane ticket. So this is a weird thing, right? Is that people will not balk at spending $500 to fly across the country to see their family for like 5 days. But they're like, I'm not paying $1,000 for a VR headset that would potentially do this for me any day I wanted to do it, right? Technology is really cheap when you think about it. When you compare it to things like flying, if I want to fly my family out to California, it's going to cost us thousands of dollars, really. Whereas a phone is much less than that. And think about how much distance a phone bridges. You can call someone, you can video call someone and see their face. You can watch me on YouTube with your phone. You can upload videos to YouTube and interact with people and respond to comments and get on x.com. You can, there it is, follow me on Ko-Fi and get access to the live rights and stuff like that. It bridges the gap. So Zuck, for all of the fun we make fun of him, he gets what the product should really be about, as far as how it should help people. And that's his vision of the metaverse, is like, metaverse is a place where people can connect with each other, not a place of, weird, uncanny graphics. Like, there's something very uncanny about people floating around without legs, right? That's an uncanny thing. Or if like people's, you see somebody, but they don't have eyes, like their eyes are blank, that's very uncanny, right? Everything's normal, but there's one disturbing detail. There's one thing that disturbs the harmony of the whole, and that's what gives you the uncanny feeling. So yes, the metaverse is a very uncanny place with, I think, a product that's directed towards something that technology really should be able to help us do, which is connect better with each other. I actually still think, while I'm just thinking on the topic of the metaverse, I still think that VR hasn't nearly reached its potential, and more people will end up using it even if they don't want to. All it takes is a few big corporate accounts to say we're going to do our collaboration internationally in the metaverse before everybody has to get into the metaverse whether they want to or not. And there's actually a lot of uncanny things and kind of dark things that can happen with that, where it's like, Bob, you're not paying attention to the PowerPoint because your headset tracks your eye movement and your eyes aren't looking at the PowerPoint. And you're like, okay, I have to turn my headset and look at the PowerPoint because the headset can track my eyes, right? Things like that. That can be very disturbing. But that's not what they're marketing it as. They're trying to market it as like, well, you can connect with people. And a lot of people are like, I already have enough virtual connections. I kind of want to disconnect from the net. It's all about choosing how you connect, really, in this point in time. I was remarking on in a group chat on Twitter. It's like I have a compulsion towards anytime somebody shows like a YouTube video of someone like, I'm leaving the internet or I'm quitting YouTube, I'm going to not make videos anymore. It's like I kind of want to click that because I'm curious if their reasoning would be the same as my reasoning. And I kind of envy them in some way because it's like, it would be good to disconnect. When I'm able to really disconnect, it's good, right? There's a lot of quality things to being able to disconnect from the internet. Unfortunately, society is not set up in such a way that we can go back to 2004. But talk about gaming with that. There's a reason there is so much nostalgia for pre-Gaming Ground Zero. Gaming Ground Zero was 2007, when you got this slew of games that ended up being the first installment in a franchise or like the peak of the franchise in about 2007. After 2007, it's kind of weird because like the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 both shipped as physical media consoles. They shipped and people bought disc games for them. And a big selling point of the PS3, and for a long time, a PS3 was one of the most affordable Blu-ray players you could get that had a lot of capabilities. And it still plays 3D Blu-rays. They switched to being a digital console. As our lives made this transition between 2007 and about 2012 from being a face-to-face society with the internet to being an internet society with some face-to-face. The main way of connecting with people became Facebook by like 2012, right? Or, just social media in general. People their lives switched around and we can't really go back. It's really hard. Even back in the early 2000s, like the nostalgia for gaming in 2004 is that there was no Facebook. So when you put a game in your PlayStation 2 and you turned on your TV, probably a tube TV still, because, we were all broke kids back then. Adrian says, I got an hour left on my second job, so you're right on time with this stream. Awesome. Hope those jobs are being productive for you and getting you ahead financially. That's really tough when you're young. I feel like the younger generation has a much bigger hill to climb than even mine, because houses are even less affordable. Like if you are, I'm 40, I just turned 40. So if you're 40 and you haven't bought a house yet, it's basically out of reach. At this point, it's awful. If you bought a house when you were like 25, you're probably still underwater from it. Right? Like 2008 was like my mom sold her house in California for, I think, only slightly more than she paid for it in 2006 or 2007. And she sold it in 2022, I think. Maybe 2023. I'm trying to remember. Sucks. So there was really no time that you could buy a house except if you happened to have a lot of cash in 2010. Then maybe you could have bought a house in my. So my generation, if you had gotten in the career path and you hadn't bought a house when you were 25 years old, you could have bought a really good house in 2010. And I had a couple friends that did. And I almost did actually in like 2009. I found houses I could buy for like $80,000 in California. And if if I had managed to buy that house and then I'd sold it later, I would have made like a giant profit on it. But yeah, it's hard for the younger generations. I know so many young people that are like 20, 21. They're like, I don't have time to live life. You know, I'm commuting an hour to work, commuting an hour back. I barely pay my rent. I still have to go to the gym and work out. Like I can't. How do I go on a date? And where's the time for that? And I feel like that generation has had that, like going back to childhood. 10 years ago, I was teaching them when they were 10 years old. And they were like, yeah, my life has no free, they're 10-year-olds without free time. That's what they were. Gen X were like tiger moms for their kids. So like, oh yeah, you know, I wake up at 6, go to 0 period PE, get done with school. Then I have football after school. Then I have band practice at night. Then I go home and do 4 hours of homework and fall into my bed and sleep for 6 hours. So that I can get into college and pay take out $100,000 loan to get a job that requires 5 years of experience and pays $15 an hour and is going to some Indian guy that moved here. You know, that's the Gen Z experience. I feel really bad. You know, Gen Y experience is like, no one's harder on Gen Y than me. I feel like, you know, we're clinically nostalgic because we remember how cool the 80s were and how cool the 90s were, and even the nostalgia for gaming in 2004. Plugging in my PlayStation 2. We remember all that stuff. Gen Z just doesn't remember that, and that's really unfortunate. Really unfortunate. There's just nothing to compare it to. It's just like an endless working hard for very little benefit. But I think if Gen Z sticks it out, they'll inherit like a lot of the benefits of the boomers passing away. They stick it out for like 10 years, there are going to be some cheap houses that come on the market, I think. And that'll be a huge boon. And that's like, oh, what if my property value goes down? I'm like, perfect. I'll pay less taxes because I actually don't have a mortgage. I'll reveal a little bit about my success. I don't have a mortgage. That's a huge blessing. That's all that extra money that I don't have to pay to a bank. Massive. It's massive not having a mortgage. So what if like someone's like, oh, your house is now only worth this much and you paid 25% more for it. I'm like, so I already just live in my house. So who cares? I don't feel bad because I'm not losing money out of my bank account every month. And then like someone else can move in that couldn't afford it. Some other young family can actually have a house to live in. That's great for them. It's all a mindset thing. Everybody gets focused on themselves. I remember people getting upset that their home was losing value. It's like, are you moving? They're like, no. I'm like, then why do you care? Well, I feel bad that I should have waited 4 years and got a cheaper mortgage. It's like, well, you wanted to live in that house 4 years ago and you've lived in it for 4 years. Maybe you could refinance for a lower rate, or I don't know what you want to do. You could sell it and buy, I don't know what. Sorry. Or you just wait for it to go back up, I guess. But yeah, so like, it's a huge blessing to like have a home, to own a home. And, I think for like millennials, a lot of them are like, it's just not in reach. We're approaching 40, the millennials, the people born in the 90s are like in their 30s now. They have no savings. They can't save enough for a down payment. They've been working corporate jobs, but they don't make enough money to barely pay rent in the expensive cities that they live in. Plus, servicing their student debt. It's like, at what point are you going to get ahead? It's really hard. Now, I'm going to bring this back to the metaverse. I know I should be talking about writing in the Uncanny, but I don't know. I'm on a tangent. There's a huge benefit to like the virtual world, which is that, especially for Gen Z, if you're getting in the tech sector, you have the potentiality to live in a cheap place and work in an expensive place. So you could live in like Tyler, Texas, and telecommute in to San Francisco. Big cost of living difference between those two cities, right? That's huge. That could be enough to make it so you could own a home, own land, have a family, but without having to, I know so many people that are my age and they're just never going to have kids. They're like, we could never afford it. I could never afford having kids. It's how they felt about it, right? It's like, man, that sucks. Like, I hope the younger generations don't end up with that predicament. But because they're being taught by millennials and stuff, they're just kind of being pulled into that same path. But because they have more opportunities than ever to like take a red pill and step out and be like, wait a minute, maybe I should take out $100,000 worth of student loan debt. Maybe I shouldn't major in women's studies. Maybe I won't get a job if I do that. Maybe I should save and things differently than what I'm doing. I'm going to do something real quick here. All right. Because my colors keep changing on my... There it goes again. Let's turn that off auto. There we go. The white balance just is like all over the place. I look a little pink. Maybe I can fix that. I look pink. That's the problem. But if I turn on auto, I look like natural. So I don't know what the deal is. Whatever. We'll live with it. We'll live with it today, I think. All right. Yeah, if you hang around for 10 years, I think Gen Z will be doing pretty good. Now the problem is trying to figure out how to marry people. We just kind of marry people that we met in life. Like, oh, where'd you meet your wife? Now they're going to be like, well, I dated online date apps, and then eventually I found someone who wasn't horrible. And I married her. So now it's like, where'd you meet your wife? Well, we went to college together, and we were music students together. We performed together, and then eventually we got married. Oh, cool. Where'd you meet your wife? Meet her on Tinder? Like, what? I don't know of anybody who's like found a permanent mate on like Tinder. Because all the incentives are so perverse. Anyway, Sound Engraver, I'm blessed about living in a house. Yeah, my husband and I live on the lower level of his mother's house to make sure she's taken care of, and the house will belong to us for as long as we can live. In the beautiful countryside too. That's awesome. I would love to be able to pass on my house to my kids. My mom, I would hope she'd be able to, pass on her house. The challenge, there's going to be a challenge though when it comes time to like pay for baby boomers in their really old age, because this happened with my grandparents who were like the World War II generation. Was basically they had to sell their house and everything they owned to pay for assisted living, and so they ended up with basically passing on nothing to their children, really at all. Everything went to pay for their extended care, memory care, and things like that. It's really expensive. So this is going to be a problem with baby boomers too, is that, how are we going to pay for their care? Like, how are we going to pay for them in their old age? I would love for my mom to be able to live with me, for us to be able to care for her directly, because I don't like retirement homes. But if she spends her retirement and fortune on that, then that's hers, and we won't inherit anything. Met my husband on YouTube. That's awesome. I knew people who met their spouse playing World of Warcraft. Multiple couples. Sounds weird now. Like, it sounded cringe in the 2000s, but it's like, dude, you met having a mutual experience. And see, that's what the metaverse could do. Like, I don't want to pump it up, but that's the potentiality that Zuck sees in this, is like, let's say, you do an activity in the metaverse, you're having a shared experience. And so love and affection, we tend to think of it as like magical things, like Cupid shoots his arrow in you and you're like, oh, I'm full of arrows for this person. But really what happens for like more of the deeper abiding forms of love and those feelings that are really persistent about caring for another person, a lot of it happens through mutual experience. It's not compatibility. I mean, compatibility is important because there are many layers of compatibility, but it's a mutual experience. We both did this thing together, and don't you remember that? And you bond through those mutual experiences. And World of Warcraft can actually be one of those. At this point, it might be cheaper to buy empty land and build a house from the ground up. So yes and no. Depends where you live. I don't know if you're from the United States, but there's a lot of complications that come to just buying empty land and building a house. It turns out it's not really much cheaper. The land is where, especially when you're talking about really expensive houses, almost all the value's in the land. You know, the house may be worth 1.5 million, but the building itself is insured for 200,000, which means if it burned down, it would cost $200,000 to build it back again. So most of the value's in the land, not in the house. If we last 10 years, I don't know. I'm super anxious with what might happen this year, given it's an election year and considering what happened in 2020. Yeah, I'm nervous. You know, I'm 28. My wife and I got super lucky buying our house in 2021 when the rates dipped for a few months. That's good. Yeah. We also is how we have a house. I stayed with both father and Parkinson's mother with other afflictions. Provides enough needed for all. Yeah. I love the idea of being able to care for parents. You know, my mom is in my kid's life like on a nearly daily basis now, and it's great. I love that. There's a big value to that. I know some people can't help it, but we will take care of my mother-in-law in the house. She doesn't have to be afraid of assisted living. And me as a rational adult, I don't like assisted living. And I think about me, it's like I would not like that experience of living in assisted living. And I would be upset if my children put me there. But in some cases, there's not a lot of other options, right? Like my grandma had dementia. Technically, somebody could have cared for her, but it would have been more or less a full-time job. So you have to kind of weigh that out, right? And especially if families are small, there may not be a person who could do that full-time job to get the house. You know what I mean? I'm from Florida, so probably not the best idea down here. Yeah. You could build on, what are you going to do? Drain a swamp? I mean, they did that for Disney World, but I mean, good luck. So yeah. All right. I'm going to maybe record this as a video. All right. Let's talk about the uncanny. When you are writing, there's one way to achieve the uncanny feeling. And when you are using a visual medium, there are many other ways to achieve what is uncanny. Let's start with the visual. And why would you want to have something that's uncanny? Well, if you were trying to create a sense of tension in a story, one of the ways that can be most effective, especially if you're writing a story that involves horror elements, rather than writing about something horrific like the description of some bloody corpse or something, or showing like a severed hand, right? Those are just gross images. The uncanny is a feeling of the normal that's been disturbed. Think of like ripples on a pond, right? If you were to see ripples on glass, that's going to be very weird because you're used to that thing being smooth. So it's a disturbing feeling. It's a feeling of being off of your balance, off of your center, and therefore it's going to add a lot of tension to a story. So we'll start with the visual. Just think of the human face. So I have a human face, you have a human face. If we take that face and we disturb it somehow, it will create the feeling of an uncanny experience. So a person that doesn't blink, this is an uncanny that takes a while to notice. Apparently we blink like thousands of times per day. I don't even know how many, but I'm sitting here thinking about blinking and therefore blinking. So a person who doesn't blink, and I actually had a music professor, his name was Benjamin Boone, a composer and saxophonist, and he like didn't blink. And he always had people like, he's weird. There's something weird about him. And I had a friend who sat in the back. It's like, we counted and he didn't blink one time for 40 minutes. He stood up there and talked to the class with his eyes completely glazed open, no blinking. That's an uncanny feeling. That's one thing that we're used to happening and it's not happening. He's not blinking. Another thing that could be uncanny would be slightly disturbed facial proportions. You think of somebody who maybe has like a chromosomal disorder. If you don't know what's going on there, they can have an uncanny appearance. You're like, oh, there's something wrong with that person. because we have an idea that everybody has a different nose, but the noses occur within a certain symmetry of the face and within a certain set of limits. So even one element that's slightly outside of those limits is going to cause an uncanny feeling. You may have heard of the uncanny valley. This is a visual phenomenon where as things look similar to humans, we find them cute and endearing up to a point. And after that point, the dissimilarity from a regular human face starts to disturb us, and it feels uncanny. It feels strange, disturbed, not right. A feeling of something that needs to be resolved. That's great for use of a story. If you have a person who doesn't blink, and if you can do that, and I remember there was a movie, I think it was Scott Pilgrim. In the Scott Pilgrim movie, they purposefully had the actors never blink. And the idea was that it was going to be like a comic, because a comic, everybody's drawn with open eyes in a comic most of the time, unless they're like, having pain inflicted on them. Nobody's drawn with a panel going, you draw everybody with open eyes. So it'll be more like a comic. The thing is, things which move, we expect certain things like blinking, the body movement. So imagine you're going to shoot a comic book film. Nobody's blinking and everybody's holding action poses all the time without blinking. And they're talking and delivering their lines with their hands up like this. I see what you did. I see what you did, without any motion. It's going to have an uncanny feeling. So if you go and you look at that movie, it's disturbing, actually, the way that actors look. You're all the actors look weird. They look weird because they're not blinking. It's one little detail that's missing from making the whole that creates an uncanny feeling. And you can do this with lots of visual things. You can obscure the eyes. You can make the pupils the wrong size. A person with big pupils outside in a bright sunlight will look weird, actually. Right? Somebody's color is slightly off. If somebody's nose is slightly too short, if their midface is too small, if their lips don't look right, if there's something weird about the symmetry of their face, it's going to look uncanny. And so the uncanny valley, people are like, why does the uncanny valley exist? It's maybe at one point in time, the theory was there was an evolutionary advantage to being able to identify things which looked human but which weren't human, like aliens or demons or something like that. And it's a really interesting idea, but I don't know where it comes from, but it's something that serves us. And if you think about it from, say, with pareidolia, basically seeing patterns in noise, is that if you think of your caveman ancestor, and he goes down to the watering hole to get some water, and he looks at the grass, and the grass is waving, and he thinks he sees a lion, and he runs away. He survives. Whether there's a lion there or not, he survives that encounter. Now, if he looks at the grass and he doesn't see the camouflaged lion, the lion jumps out and eats him, then his non-pattern creating brain just leaves the gene pool. All right, so there would be a selection advantage to having a pattern-seeking brain that sees patterns even when they aren't there. Likewise, there would be some sort of advantage to identifying things which aren't human but look human, like demons or something like that. But on a certain level, we use all of these tells to determine if our social interactions are working properly. If you meet somebody I don't know if you've ever met somebody who was actually had a major mental disorder like schizophrenia, but they could be really disturbing to be around because their mannerisms, their movements can be just unpredictable and strange. Likewise, if you are dealing with someone that has a personality disorder, it's also often very confusing because they're behaving in ways that aren't predictable, and you get maybe uncanny feelings about the things that they're saying because they're not within the range of what we consider normal. So anytime you want to create an uncanny feeling visually, you just have one thing that disturbs, that's out of the range of normal of what's there. One or two things, right? So you could have a living room. Let's say we are, we're going to have a horror movie, right? And we have a detective come into a living room where the murder victim is. You only need one thing in that scene, and it's not a dead body, to make the audience feel a sense of unease or even fright. And that one thing is just something that is a little bit out of the ordinary, something that doesn't belong. Just to give you an example, you walk into a living room and maybe there's like no couch. Instead of couches, there's like 2 folding chairs. That's weird. Now, folding, you can sit in folding chairs. I had a living room where we didn't have a couch for a while. We just had folding chairs. But in the case where you have just folding chairs, it's a little weird, right? Or you go into the room and the TV is in the very middle of the room, not against the wall, but in the middle of the room. You'd be like, why is the TV on the coffee table? It could be because the guy wanted the TV to look bigger, right? It's uncanny. You'll get this with some kind of newer generation creepypasta stuff and like liminal spaces. A liminal space is a transition space. It's a space where you're moving from one area to another. And so a feeling of liminalness means that you feel like you should be in 2 places at once. Like there's 2 conflicting things happening at the same time. So think of an airport hallway, a hallway in an airport. You are not in the area where you're buying food. You're not in like the ticketing area. You're not in security. You're not on the plane. You're in a transitory space. So it can actually feel uneasy to be in spaces like that persist for too long. So if you've ever been in like a really long hallway, really long hallways are creepy. And you use this in like the movie The Shining. A really long empty hallway creates a very strong sense of the uncanny. And it creates a sense of the uncanny because we're not used to transitionary spaces, liminal spaces, persisting for that long. We're used to them being short. So that's one way visually you can do it. You can have a long hallway. A hallway that is longer than it ought to be is going to create a really strong sense of unease. Here's another way to create the uncanny is you have a normal space. We're talking about the visual, mostly like the visual area, right? You can have a normal space that is missing the thing which it's normally used for. So think of an empty restaurant. Empty restaurants can be a bit creepy. Normally they're full of people. They're full of noise. So you come in, it's quiet. The lights are on. There should be people there. There's not people there. Like an empty Pizza Hut. The arcade cabinets are on. There's like a Neo Geo cabinet doing the demos, right? The lights are on in the kitchen. Maybe even it smells like pizza because like pizza places always smell like pizza. It's just a thing. Pizza places always smell like pizza. And there's no one there. The only sound is like the demo from the arcade cabinet in the corner. And so you're drawn to the arcade cabinet and you go over to the arcade cabinet. How would you set that up? I know exactly what I do. There's something weird. This is a weird game. I've never seen this game before. I thought I played every game from the 1990s, but I've never seen this game. How do you play it? Where is everyone? You're drawn to play the game, right? So the unease is a sense of tension. We have a bunch of questions. Where are all the people? Why aren't the cooks there? Why are we not eating pizza? Right? Like someone posted pictures of a Taco Bell that got sealed up at the end of the 90s and they unsealed it and walked around. They've been using it as like a storage room. It's creepy. It's creepy because we don't see that today. Whoa, this is a thing from the wrong time. It's existing in the wrong place in the wrong time, where its place of normalcy was in 1999, but now it's 2024 and it does not compute. This restaurant doesn't belong in 2024. It belongs in 1999. Stephen King was actually really good at using this, and like The Shining and lots of different books. So you imagine somebody comes in, and they used to do it with the Twilight Zone. So if you watch the old Twilight Zone episodes, they used this a lot. The guy walks into a diner and it's like, wow, it's just like when I was a kid. And everybody's dressed like how I was when I was a kid. And the soda jerk looks like the guy who was here when I was a kid. Now, there's nothing technically out of bounds with that 50s diner, except it's 1968. So he's remembering something from like 18 years prior. It doesn't belong here. This doesn't belong here. This is not right. So you get that. Now we have to figure out how to resolve it. So it's a form of tension you can add, and you can actually add it into any scene. You can use it as foreshadowing. You can use it to set up a story. You can use it for lots of different things, right? So yeah, liminal spaces. Liminal spaces were good. I used them in Demon Ex Machina, which I came out with last year. There was lots of spaces that aren't quite right. Like there's a place where he goes to someone's apartment, but it's actually a converted hotel. And these exist. My wife actually lived in one 20 years ago. It wasn't in Vegas, but it made me think of this. It was like you go in and things are just slightly off. You like go into the condo and you're like, it's a hotel room, right? It's like a Comfort Inn Suites. You know, it's a upscale hotel room that now there's a kitchen in it now and a fridge and people are living in it. And it has a lobby with slot machines in it, but there's no one in the slot machines, right? It's an empty lobby. It's an empty casino, right? A casino that's empty would be very creepy. Casinos are never empty, right? With all the blinking lights, it would be really off-putting. Okay. So I used a lot of little things like that. You know, a room full of computers that are all on doing things, but there's no one there. That's very uncanny. The lights are on, but no one's home. It's uncanny. The lights are off, but someone is home. That's like Whisperer in the Dark by H.P. Lovecraft. The lights are off. He's not moving. There's an uncanny. We know that there's something wrong with him. And we're not told exactly what it is, but we come to the conclusion that like an alien is wearing his skin. If you read Whisperer in the Dark by H.P. Lovecraft, great story, great horror story to read. I think I've done an analysis of it on this channel. But at the end, there's a character and he's like in the dark, whispering like this, not moving. And it's intended to be very disturbing. So how do you create the uncanny in the written space? It's not too much different than the visual space, but you're going to be describing what is uncanny rather than simply showing it. So this is where I think first-person perspective can be really useful when you're writing, is that the sense of uncanny can be filtered by the perspective character. The character who is telling the story can talk about his feelings in the first person. And you as the reader can get a sense of those feelings. He can talk about what he's focusing on. I looked around the room and it looked exactly like any living room, except it was a living room from 1998. There was even a large tube TV over in the corner running snow static, like the cable got unplugged from the back. I walked slowly towards it. I peeked around the back of the TV and saw that the cable had indeed been unscrewed from the back of the tube. I wondered whether I should plug it in. It seemed like something that I ought to do. But there was something in my gut that told me that this space wasn't right. Where I looked at the phone, the phone had one of those curly cables. Should I plug this in? Finally, my compulsion got the better of me. I plugged the cable in. TV flickered to life. It was one of those QSC shopping shows. I wondered if that network was still on the air. Of course it has to be, because it's coming out of the TV. I sat down on the couch. It was well worn. It was mauve. It had a musty flavor to it, like someone had been eating Cheetos on it for years. I watched the shopping show. What were they selling? They were selling jewelry. Then the segment changed. They were hyping up. You're not going to believe what you're going to see next. This is a really rare item. You have to call now. 1-800-da-da-da-da-da-da. And what do I see? But I see... What does he see? Something that's going to make him have to call. I see a 19 69. Gibson Les Paul. Vintage guitar. Why is this on a shopping show? It was just like the one my dad had that got stolen. I reached for the phone. I picked it up and dialed the number. Right? So all this stuff, like you like if you were writing a story like that, it's like, this is all wrong. Everything in it is wrong. We need to fix it to make it right. That's the sense of the uncanny. Right? So I'm just describing some things that are there, and the character's focusing on what's uncanny. Right? It's like, I picked up the phone. I heard the dial tone. I realized I hadn't heard a dial tone in 20 years. When's the last time you guys heard a dial tone? That, like, it's like a diminished chord. Just as an aside, if you want to make the sound of a train whistle, it's a fully diminished 7 chord. Fully diminished 7 chord is the sound of a train whistle. Sorry, let me check out the chat. The Exorcist was probably my first exposure to something disturbingly uncanny. A young girl speaking in a manner that is not like a young girl should speak at all. And then the horror ratchets up from there. So that's how it begins. Like, let me meet this girl and she's not right. Like, we have a normal limits for how a girl should be. And if she's outside of any of those, it's going to be like, that's uncanny. We need to figure out why that's happening and what's wrong and how we're going to fix it. Not blinking is uncanny. I'd want to blink more myself to compensate for the loss. Yeah, if you're watching someone like, turn to page 45 in your books. David, can you tell me what chord is in beat 1 of measure 3? I'll be like, yeah, it's C major 7. And what's the function of the chord? It's a 4. It's a 4/7 chord. Because we're in the key of G. That's right. Now maybe he blinks when he turns around and writes on the board. I'm thinking of my professor. I actually met my wife in his class. This guy who didn't blink that I'm thinking of, right? I met my wife in that class, and I remember how we met because, how did you guys meet? We both were carrying this North Face backpack. We had like the same backpack, not exactly the same, but a similar backpack, and I had a conversation with her about the backpack. She's like, "Oh, you have the same backpack as me." I was like, "Yeah, I do." And my wife's name is Haukia, which is a Dutch name, and no one can ever pronounce it when they see it. They're like, So I remember Ben, or Dr. Boone, was like looking at it. He goes, "Okay, I'm gonna mess this up," and it's him looking at it. "Okay, I'm gonna mess this up." Hukja. It's Haukia. All right. So like he didn't blink, and it was later. It's like, man, this guy's kind of weird. I don't know, eccentric. Someone pointed out later, it's like, this guy doesn't blink. He like almost never blinks, and it's weird. And he may have like some kind, it might be a neurological thing where like he has to think about blinking. I also had another music professor who had Tourette's. Now, not Tourette's where it's like, boobs, it's like he just would have these tics all the time. So that's unsettling too, right? Like, why is this person emoting? This person's just emoting all the time. It was just a tic. It was just because he had like mild Tourette's, right? So those things, like when you first meet someone, they're going to be weird and off-putting, and later you're like, okay, I get it, and it's weird, and I kind of accept that person has Tourette's and has a tic or something, Liminal spaces. Sometimes criminal drawings are uncanny. Yeah, they can be, Alexandro, for sure. Have you ever heard Charles Manson's music? I think he actually collaborated with the Beach Boys on something. Yeah, Stephen King movie about time eaters did this well. An empty airport. Like an empty airport, we're supposed to be full of people. An airport's never not full of people. So it being empty is very disturbing. I would so want a McDonald's from the 90s, uncanny or not. There's still a couple of them around. There's a few that still have like the big arches from the 50s or 60s. Those are really cool. Brad Dourif shaved his eyebrows to play Grima Wormtongue in order to make him look uncanny. It works because it disturbs all of his expression, right? Because the eyebrows are telegraphing so many different things for a normal face. So for his to not have that, I think it works. It works really good. Just like having one thing that disturbs it, right? It could even be something like a mustache that's too long, so you can't see the the lips moving can be a little weird, right? Some would claim pineapple on pizza is uncanny. I'd say they need to stop judging, right? There's an uncanny feeling with, for instance, the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is where, I've done a video on this. It's basically where, and people got upset that I said it was you're misremembering, like you're misremembering things. That is because we don't record memories. We're not like a camera, like recording things that then play back in your mind later. You write memories the way you write stories because there's too many details going on at once for you to record every detail. So you are always filtering and memorizing the important details as well as their context to make a narrative that is a memory. So for, let's say, like Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 80s. You'll notice nobody from South Africa thinks Nelson Mandela died in prison. Right? Because they were in South Africa. But if you have a little bit of distance from that, you didn't hear about Nelson Mandela for a long time. And then when you did, your mind started recontextualizing things. Wait, I didn't hear about him because I thought he died in prison. Things like that. But you may do it for lots of little things. Like, oh, the Ford logo was different. It was the Berenstain Bears, not the Berenstain Bears. Not the Berenstain Bears. It was the Berenstain Bears. I thought it was the Berenstain Bears, but I remember the Berenstain Bears from before I could read, and my mom may have said it wrong, right? And you go and look, and it's the Berenstain Bears, okay? Berenstain is a more common name, so it's easy to just think that you're error correcting. You do an error correcting that actually creates an error. So there's lots of little things like that can happen. But we get an uncanny feeling when we're like, wait a minute, Berenstain Bears. Did I slip into an alternate dimension where this name changed? Maybe, right? And that would be a resolution to the uncanny feeling. But more likely it's that we know that memory is not super reliable. Like we've tested this. Eyewitnesses are really not very reliable when it comes to memorizing and remembering specific details. They have a general sense of something happening, but they may not remember details all that well. Or they may fabricate details because there's something where they didn't record it. Like they didn't memorize a detail, but then that detail was necessary later, so they fill it in with what's the most logical thing without even really realizing it. It happens all the time. So that you end up with false memories. Really weird phenomenon, and really weird ways that people come up to resolve this uncanny feeling. Well, must be that like the timeline split. That's why we end up with Donald Trump or lots of fun sci-fi ideas, but the simpler explanation is simply that your memory is not perfect. You can't remember every detail of every day perfectly. So why do you think you're remembering this detail perfectly? Anyway. But you get that uncanny feeling. I don't know if you've ever had that. Right? I realized that I got a really uncanny feeling watching the Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring theatrical trailer. Because there were things in that trailer which were not in the movie. I was sure of it, right? And I had to go and check. I was like, they had these women in like medieval dresses running through the forest, and you heard them laughing like in a weird, creepy horror movie. And I was like, that was not in the movie, was it? Or am I going crazy? No, it wasn't in the movie. But it was something they had shot as like a B-roll. And of course, they weren't done editing the movie. Someone put together a preview with what they had shot so far. And that somehow ended up in the preview, something that didn't end up in the movie. This was also true of Rogue One, a Star Wars story, where half the crap in the previews got cut from the movies. They reshot 40% of the movie after they took it away from the director. Weird things, right? So you're like, wait a minute. I remember this image. That image was from the preview and never made it in the movie, right? So it could create a very uncanny feeling. G-Man from Half-Life is another great example of the uncanny. Yeah, he's just out of place. He's just creepy. Many malls still standing today are embodiments of the uncanny. We know they were teeming with people in the 80s and 90s, but are now empty, virtually empty. There was just an empty mall in Bakersfield called East Hills Mall. Really weird. right? YouTuber named Dan Bell has extensively recorded this. There was one department store that was still open connected to it, and you could like go to the back and look into the mall, and it was like all these dark places with like random weird lights on. It's like, man, it's creepy. Or if you ever do any, what's it called? Urbex, urban exploration. You're going to find some creepy stuff. I remember seeing a man at a concert dinner. He had an expression of surprise the whole time. I knew it had to be a condition. Right? Yeah. That's silly, David. Obviously, it's timeline shifting in alternate dimensions versus your memory just not being perfect. I always assumed the Mandela effect was some made up something. People heard and believed it and perpetuated it to others who believed it. No, it's an actual effect where like you remember something that is in contrast with what you're being presented with today. We'll put it that way. In as neutral language as possible. Like you remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 80s, but everybody is telling you now that he somehow was president of South Africa at one point. So it's like I'm not remembering that correctly. Or any other things. The Ford logo is different. You remember it being different or something like that. Talking about malls and uncanny places, this reminds me of Omega Mart in Vegas. It's a rather strange supermarket experience. I never went to that, I don't think. You familiar with the concept of senpaku eyes? Yes. So here's what senpaku eyes are. Senpaku means like 3 whites. So normally when you look at a person's eyes, you're going to see whites on either side of the iris. Hopefully my eyes are doing that. I'm not doing like... But when somebody's eyes are shaped a little bit differently, sometimes their normal way of looking, you see a white above or a white below. This is actually not a normal way that eyes look, right? Like this. So if somebody's eyelids are like being pulled down like this, it gives them a look like they're psychotic. And if they're like this, where it's like you see the whites above the eyes, they look like they're about to kill you. It looks really weird, right? Now, why does this surprise? Why do we open our eyes in surprise? It's because when we're surprised, it's a fight or flight thing. We're trying to maximize the amount of visual input we can get so that we can make a decision, right? Things like that. Blood pressure raises so that your muscles are primed and ready to move, ready to run away, right? So surprise is like, why is this surprise? It's because it's like, well, first of all, we move back away from danger, but we open our eyes so that we can make sure we're getting as much input at the visual space as possible to make a decision about whether to fight or flight. Yeah. Yeah, so when people have resting senpaku eyes, it's really weird, right? And I notice it a lot. I notice certain people like here's this is it Billie Eilish? I'm gonna look her up. Is it Eilish or Eilish? I don't know. I've never heard anyone say her name. She has senpaku eyes, man. She has you can see in every picture she has like the bottom of her whites showing, and it's actually really creepy. So this is what it looks like. What does she look like? She looks like this. All right. Yeah, senpaku eyes. People are like, she's hot. I'm like, she's creepy. This is a creepy looking girl to me. I could be wrong, you know. You can think whatever you want. But I see those senpaku eyes, and it looks like she's got a 1,000-yard stare. She looks like she has been used and abused and is not well, right? Like, this is not the expression of a normal, well person. Like, look at the whites of the eyes. It's gross, right? You look at that person and you think, like, this is a person that's coming out of, like, a battered women's shelter or something, right? She looks like she's been through hell, and she's, like, 18 in that picture. But she looks different in, like, every picture, but... yeah, the senpaku eyes. Gross. Weird. Uncanny. Inhuman. That's the best example of a celebrity I can think of. Where something's a little bit disturbed. Know what I mean? So, Adam Schiff has a very bad case of senpaku eyes. AOC has that, and Anya Taylor-Joy and Fairuza Balk. I don't know who they are. So I'd have to let me Google them. Let me Google. What was the first one? I have Senpaku eyes, says Vincent on Twitter. Oh, a Twitter message, yes. Twitter's always telling me lies. They're like, 8,000 people watch your stream. I'm like, no one watched that on Twitter. There's no one commenting. Everyone's watching on YouTube. It's like, here's your Twitch stats. I'm like, I don't even believe those. There were not 10 people on Twitch. I wasn't showing my boobs. No one was watching on Twitch. Creepy's part of her music persona. I haven't really listened to her music. I haven't listened. I mean, I heard maybe a song from her, but I didn't find it interesting enough to remember it really. I'm not trying to like cast shade, but you know, I find most like stuff like that not very interesting. All right, Anna Taylor-Joy. Who is this? Anya Taylor-Joy. Is she on SNL? Oh, she's weird looking, but she has an uncanny look, not because of her eyes, but let's look at her. She's weird looking. I know some people that think this girl's like it, you know, but I think she's weird looking. Yeah, if you're wanting to know why she's weird looking, it has to do with the cheeks. Like she had her buccal fat removal surgery, which makes people look like they are suffering from malnourishment. All right, the hollow cheeks are weird. And if you look, the cheekbones are too low. Look how low the cheekbones are below the eyes. My cheekbones are right here. They're not down here. Right? Like she has these weird low cheekbones that look alien. So that's probably the one detail that I would say makes her stand out as alien. Besides, like, the eyes are very wide set. They're outside of normal limits for how wide set they are. Now, I'm probably some weirdo with very narrow set eyes. But hers, like her pupillary distance is very wide. Like if she were to have glasses made, an optometrist would have a hard time finding frames for her because her eyes are so wide apart. You could drive a truck between those eyes. She also has a little bit of, I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's called a saddle nose. So if you look at her in profile, it's not as apparent. But whenever you're looking at her face on, it looks like the bridge of her nose disappears into her eyebrows. So it looks like she has a little bit of a saddle nose, which is where your bridge of your nose is kind of collapsed into your face, where like this part is like all the way against your face. It happens from people who abuse cocaine, like their cartilage like gets destroyed. Not so much in this one. In this one, it looks very thing here. But yeah, this drooping eyelid with the Senpaku eyes is very creepy. But that's part of her having her head tilted slightly down and looking up. But yeah, there's this big droop to the eyelid, you know, which looks weird. But mostly I think it's the proportions. The eyes are really far apart. The cheekbones are really low on the face, kind of going into the lips when they should be, you know, higher on a normal face. I just think she's really weird looking. Now, what would I cast her on? I would make her like an elf, and give her even more exaggerated eyebrows and like ears so that it's like she looks inhuman when you see her on screen. Like she's pretty enough that you could see somebody mating with an elf, but she's so weird looking with like the hollow cheeks that she doesn't look human. It's not attractive, right? She doesn't look like a hot girl. It's not like elf girl is hot. It's like elf girl is weird. That's what elf girl looks like. She's weird, right? Who's the other one? Yeah. Is that Sid from Ice Age? Yeah, she looks like a sloth, man. Or praying mantis. And when eyes are really far apart, like a praying mantis, that's very creepy. It doesn't look right. Look, her standing next to a person with normal pupillary distance. It's like This guy looks like a human being. And also notice like he has some asymmetries and stuff, but they're not, his face is very asymmetrical. But it's not so pronounced you'd be like, well, that's not a human being. Intense asymmetries start to look uncanny. Like if someone's eye is really off, like a flounder, his eyes are a little off, but not that much, A little bit of asymmetry is pretty normal. But like you see her standing next to a normal person and you're like, man, she looks weird. He's not the most normal looking guy either, but you see how high his cheekbones are? That's like cheekbones are higher. They're not like down on your cheeks. Like they just look weird to her. They just look weird on her. Anyway, if you think she's hot, that's your thing. Who's the other one that Hardwick mentioned? Fariza Balk. Firuza Balk. I don't know how to say her name. Oh, yeah, girl hit the wall. But anyway, I thought she was cute back in the day. But it's that her smile is too gummy and too big. It ends up she looks like a puppet, right? It's the mouth proportions feel slightly off. It doesn't look that bad though. I think if she's not smiling, I think she's cute. Her facial proportions aren't that out of whack. Normal. Like in this picture, she looks really normal. She looks like a normal person. I think some of these ones where she's making a really extreme face, she's acting. This is a weird style, isn't it? Someone was like, yeah, you're going to look good in that at the MTV Music Awards or wherever the hell this was. You just cut off all your hair, wear a thing that like basically doesn't cover anything up but like the top part of your nipples. And it'll make sure everybody knows you're an A cup. Like this is the least flattering thing. This is the least flattering picture I've ever seen of a celebrity, I think. Like weird expression on her face, terrible haircut, absolutely terrible outfit, weird pose. She's sticking her chest out and trying to do a vacuum pose like a bodybuilder. She's like, oh, camera's on. And this is a really standard posing thing is like you face your hips. So like I don't know how to do it. Like I'm at the camera, right? You turn your hips and then you pull a shoulder back. And then it makes your waist look smaller, right? I can't get up and do it. I don't have enough room, but you get the idea. So it looks like she's trying to strike this pose, but she's halfway through it. It looks like a weird bodybuilding pose to try to like accentuate like some lats she doesn't have. A little weird looking. Actually, let's talk about plastic surgery because plastic surgery will cause people to look uncanny. Meg Ryan's a great example, okay? So look at a picture of young Meg Ryan, right? Like, look at her. She's gorgeous, right? Something happened where she got too much work done and people were like, I don't recognize her anymore. So what changed, right? Well, she got filler in her cheeks, right? Because what happens is your skin gets loose as you get older, right? You can start pulling. My skin used to be really rubbery. I can't do it anymore, but like you get like loose skin and wrinkles around the eyes and things sag, like your face sags a little bit when you get old. Okay, all right, it happens to us. We're all getting old. We're all getting older. We should. Part of the reason that it's tough if you're in Hollywood and you're Meg Ryan is Meg Ryan made her fame looking like the left. And so she, probably not incorrectly assumed she needs to always look like that if she wants to keep working. And so she got filler, looks like a lot of filler here. See how the cheeks are puffed out? Maybe a facelift, right? To kind of pull the wrinkles away. Her chin is probably the same chin, but it doesn't have the same contours. Like she tried to lose too much weight and put too much filler in her face. And you actually notice this with, who was Johnny Depp's ex-wife? Who am I thinking of? I'm thinking of, tell me. Her face is very uncanny because of plastic surgery she's had. Though most people don't see it, but I see it, and she's going to look really weird in about 10 years. People are going to see pictures of her in 10 years and be like, what the hell happened? So, yeah, this is a slightly uncanny look. We're like, what happened to Meg Ryan? Well, she got older, and part of getting older in Hollywood means how do you keep working? See how thin her face is and how shapely it is. And in order to avoid wrinkles, we start pumping it full of filler, and it makes you look weird. Just age. Save your money. Just be old, okay? Who's this? Is that the guy who wrote the Satanic Verses? Amber Heard, thank you. All right. I'm saving the best for last. Amber Heard. All right. So you see a picture of Amber Heard with a relaxed face, and you're like, she's hot. Yeah, she's hot. What about the desire for exotic traits that are uncommon in the everyday? That might be why some find uncanny attractive. Absolutely. And this is actually how they cast models, is that they cast models because they'll have one or two really unique features that make them stand out. Rather than having everything be perfectly symmetrical, they'll have, those wide set eyes or really big blue eyes or a pronounced nose or a beauty mark or something. It's something that makes them stand out. They have to stand out from the crowd to be a model. That's how it usually ends up working. There was an actress, I'm forgetting her name. She was in Dirty Dancing. She got a nose job and she never worked again because it was her slightly odd shaped nose. She had kind of a curved nose. That's what made her look like her. And when she fixed that, she couldn't get work again. She had Senpaku eyes a little bit, almost. But when she's totally relaxed, she looks attractive. The problem is when you see her like this, you realize she looks more like Michael Jackson than a supermodel. You know, it looks like she's had a nose job at some point, almost, right? Again, that saddle nose, where the bridge of the nose starts to look collapsed in on the face, right? She doesn't look too bad in this picture. She looks like a normal person. But I'm going to see if I can find a picture of her smiling. When she is smiling and therefore pulling up her face, you'll start to see that there's something not right about her face. And I remember seeing it from this, where she's putting on this big fake smile, right? And I'll look at my face. You know, big fake smile, and it was like weird wrinkles in wrong spots. It's because she had filler. I'm trying to remember the name of the chemical that they do, but they inject this filler in there to fill up the hollows that happen as you get older. As you get older, your skin gets flabby and you start to get these hollows. So you fill it up with filler. So that it looks like you're not wrinkling. But if you go even a little bit too much on the filler, it'll look uncanny. Even a little bit too much is going to look uncanny. If you go, and then even if you're on the edge and you start to smile, it looks really weird. It's Amber Heard smiling. The Bogdanoff twins, that's a great example. I'm still saving we'll look at the Bogdanoffs next. You can see her face is full of filler here. Like, you could see it. Like, this is not a normal cheek shape. Can you see that? That's not the way cheeks look, right? When she smiles, it scrunches everything up into her eyes because it's full of filler. You know, she's had a bunch of work done. Had Botox in her forehead. That's why her forehead doesn't wrinkle when she smiles. This is standard stuff, I'm sure, for women in Hollywood. But her look is usually not a smiling look. It is see how scrunched up her face looks and weird? See how it's like everything around her eyes looks swollen? It's because you get bags under your eyes, you start to get this fold. And it's really hard to correct that with plastic surgery. So a lot of plastic surgeons will put filler in there. And if you're completely slack-faced, like a model, it looks good. As soon as you smile, the whole thing comes apart and you start to look weird. Just a little weird, right? Just a little weird. It's not even super weird. It's just her cheeks just look a little off. You only see it in certain positions. But I remember seeing a video of her and it's just like, what? How do people find this girl hot? Her face looks weird. It's because she's smiling instead of standing relaxed. Yeah, Bogdanov twins. They died of COVID, by the way. They're like, we're not getting the vaccine, and then they died. So that was like one of those examples. Everybody was looking for an example. Like, oh, this person got the COVID vaccine and died of a heart attack. These people didn't get the COVID vaccine. They caught it and died. Now, if you look at the Bogdanov twins when they were young, these guys were hot. All right, here's them old. They don't look human. These guys don't look human because of the plastic surgery. Their lips are outside of normal bounds. Their chins are outside of normal bounds. Their cheeks are outside of normal bounds so that their eyes look very small. Their eyes look too small. They look like Neanderthals almost with all the work that they've had done, right? Look how far out these cheeks go. Look at these guys, right? They've had so much stuff pumped into so much filler stuffed into their cheeks. Like if you go even a little bit over, you're going to look weird, right? Like a good plastic surgeon will make it look like you never had plastic surgery, right? A bad plastic surgeon will let you do whatever you want to pay for, right? A good plastic surgeon will be like, I'm not going to do that because you'll look weird. But most plastic surgeons are for hire, right? So they're going to, like, look at this. Does this look human to you? Especially next to a human face. It's like, look at these cheeks, dude. Like, so weird. And they've probably had hair transplants and stuff to get their hair like this because they were like in their 70s or something. Here's them in a transitionary stage, right? You could see they died. Oh, no, okay. I don't want to pay for the New York Times. You guys are dumb. All right. But yeah, you can see, look at this chin implant. Right? That's not human. That's not normal. Artists can probably tell this a lot faster than other people because they spend a lot of time drawing faces and figuring out the symmetry of the face, how you divide the face up into different parts, how your ears line up with your eyes and your nose, where your mouth lines up with that. All this stuff you learn in basic, a basic art class will immediately prime you for when anything's out of bounds. This is not a profile. This is a profile of like a Habsburg, right? Or, like somebody who's inbred. I don't know. There's Habsburgs living that are not crazy inbred. So, but this is like somebody whose uncle married, his mom was, his dad was his mom's uncle and, had that big crazy chin. Who am I thinking of? Charles V? Charles V. Some plastic surgeons are like, yeah, I'll let my clients are going for a particular look. It's like, well, you're trying to, here they are young. Look at these guys. This is what they looked like. And the thing about men is like men don't just like fall off the cliff as they age, right? Women are more okay with men's wrinkles than men are with women's wrinkles. So at 70, if they had looked normal, they probably would have looked like attractive 70-year-olds. There's already been some work done here. You can tell at the chins, but like the chin has been extended. Like the cheeks are full of weirdness. The skin has been pulled taut in order to try to look young instead of being wrinkly and loose, which is what happens when you get older. You lose that collagen in your skin. The elasticity starts to go. That's okay. We all get older, right? The best I've ever seen Amber Heard look is a shot of her smiling in a flirty way in Aquaman. The best I've seen her look was a shot for Guess as a model in 2013. She looked mega hot. It was like a black and white picture, and that was the first time I remember who she was. To me, Amber Heard looks like a lanky, less delicately featured version of Scarlett Johansson. Scarlett Johansson's held on to her looks a lot better, too. That's for sure. Jennifer Grey. I don't know who Jennifer Grey is. Wouldn't it be better to get tighter skin by cutting off excess skin than getting a filler? That's a facelift. Yeah. They make an incision and then they pull the skin tighter. The thing is that a good plastic surgeon will be able to do it in a way that like it's not, but people end up with, I don't know, put on camera. Like if you pull your skin back, you end up with this look, right? Which can be a little weird, right? So if they do it correctly, then, they can. The hard part is like around the eyes, you get like these bags around the eyes. So they put in like filler or try to Botox all this, get rid of all that stuff. My forehead has grown by one finger over the years. It used to be a forehead and then it's like a 5 head. Well, it's a 4 head of my giant hands. It's like, how big is my forehead? It's 4 fingers. But my hands are like a bunch of bananas. So it's a big forehead. All right, let's look at just run, swim, ride bicycle, do calisthenics. Yeah, try to be healthy. The thing is like beauty maps to health in a lot of cases, right? So especially as a man or a woman, as you get older, if you're healthy, you look better, right? The things that we tend to associate with beauty are markers of health. Lower body fat, right? Even distribution of fat on the body means that you have enough fat that you're not starving, right? A lot of women are not into bodybuilders because, especially in the face, because when they get down to like 5% body fat, they're like, they call it the death face. Like your cheeks get sucked in. You just look really rough, man. You need a little bit of fat around your face, right? But like an even distribution of fat, right? But, not excessive body fat, shiny hair means you have enough fat and oils in your system for your hair to look good. All that stuff tends to map to health. And if you have a lack of health, your skin is pale or spotted. That usually means that like you're not getting, you're not exercising enough. You're not getting enough sun. You're sick or anemic or something. Like pale skin, really pale skin, like a naturally pale skin looks anemic, not like, oh, you're from Norway. It looks like you don't have enough blood. You don't look pink and hale like a Norwegian. You look white like a vampire. It looks uncanny. What about Robbie Williams? Medical. I don't know who that is. That's the look for me. They're nearly as bad as Jocelyn Wildenstein. Oh yeah, the cat lady, right? Jennifer Grey's the chick in Dirty Dancing. That's it. Thank you. Yeah. So she doesn't look. She didn't look bad without the like. I don't think she looked bad before the nose job, but she had this kind of nose, right? That's kind of curved like an eagle and kind of points downward. And I think she had a nose job to shrink that nose down. And then she didn't get work after that because her nose made her prominent, made her special, made her stand out, made her, and she looks good with just a different nose, I guess. But she doesn't look like her. She just blends in too much. She started looking like a girl you'd be happy to go on a date with, but not Jennifer Grey. An interesting thing about. Let's look at Madonna. Madonna is the most bizarre creature now. I don't know how we ended up like criticizing celebrities' plastic surgery, but like, look at this. This woman's like 70 years old. Yeah, when was she born? 1958, so she's 65. She's a retiree, okay? Trying to look like this. The hair is fake. It's dyed. Maybe it's a weave. Look at her ears. See how her ears are like super droopy and long? Like even the difference between this and like her 50s and this is so weird. It's just a subtle difference. Her cheeks are too big. Her lips are slightly too big. Her skin, there's too much distance between the eye and the ear. You know? The ears are too long and they look like she looks like she has an 80-year-old man's earlobes. The earlobes are too big. The eyes look like they're above the ears. Her eyebrows are missing in action. No eyebrows. That's a good one. Living abroad, I've seen a lot of plastic surgery. In Morocco, women went for the Kardashian look. Everything was pumped to an absurd level. Asia's a little more subtle most of the time. Asia is another interesting country to look at for plastic surgery because it's huge in like Korea. Like plastic surgery is, there's a lot of plastic surgery in Korea. And you see some of these before and afters and you're like, they look like different people. They're like recontouring the jaw. You know, she comes out looking like a different person. She goes in at a 5 and comes out as a 9. And that's no joke. Like they actually do a good job. My question is like, what are these like? What does a person look like at 40 though? Right. She was hospitalized. No wonder she's 65. You know, I know that I've known musicians that are working into their 70s. I don't even know how old Mick Jagger is. He's like 80. And he's still somehow able to get on stage and perform. But like 65, it's okay to like take your foot off the gas a bit. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to tour until you drop dead, especially when you're Madonna. But Madonna was always sold based on sex appeal and edginess, and it's hard to be sexy and edgy when you're 65. So at a certain point, you cross over like a threshold and you can never go back. Here's her looking more like a normal older lady before she had all the work done. So what's the difference? Let's look at these two. Well, you can see she has wrinkles around the eyes. Here, this has all been completely filled in to try to hide the wrinkles. Look how fat the cheeks are. Like a chipmunk, right? She probably had already been having work done, but she crossed a threshold at some point. And then this just looks like an uncanny. It looks like a wax, like you had a wax museum, right? It looks like melted wax, like just made of wax. She looks like an Oblivion character almost, right? Oblivion is one of those games that I love Oblivion, but you look at the characters and you're like, it's just everything's slightly uncanny. Like the facial, her face is too big for like the skull. The outside of the face is too big for the inside of the face. And these weird drawn low cheekbones because you filled everything in. See how her cheekbones are, they're not super high here, but they're kind of in a normal range. And here they're like, bleh, they're down by below her ears. Weird looking. Sharon Stone looks her age and still graceful. Who else was I thinking of that held her looks for a really long time? I think she was with Burt Reynolds for a while. Who am I thinking of? But she looked good into her old age. But she still looked like an old woman. She just looked like older, you know. What does Sharon Stone look like? I'm sure all of these women have had work done, but she just put the brakes on it, you know. Oh boy, there's a bikini photo. 65. She definitely had some work done. She had a better plastic surgeon though. Right? Like the eyes are not completely filled in. She might have had a facelift, but they didn't pump her eyes full of filler. There's probably a little bit of filler, you know. It's more subtle. She looks like she's 65, but she looks good at 65. She looks like a good-looking 65-year-old. She doesn't look like she's some sort of weird. This is weird though. Come on, guys. It's okay to like not say you have to have a swimsuit on at all times. You know, I mean, it's a 65-year-old in a swimsuit. That's fine. She looks more like she just accepts that, hey, you know, I'm going to be old. It's okay to and it's also okay to take roles that are grandma because you're grandma age. And that's good. It's good that you live to be grandma age. I even saw a video of like Madonna trying to do like Dirty Dancing at 65. It was like so disturbing. But that's her image. Like when you make this image about like youth and sexuality, how do you transition to anything else? I don't know. You know? It looks like a gross book there. I'm not clicking on that. All right. Okay. Enough talking about the Uncanny Valley. I'm out of time. I was going to do a live write. Should I do the live write? And do it for like maybe 20 minutes. I got hooked on this, like talking about celebrities thing. I got hooked on the celebrities, you know. Selma Hayek's 57 and looks great. She does look good. Sally Field, thank you. Okay, so Sally Field like looks like an old woman. At least she did for a long time. I don't know if there's any like current pictures of her. But she never looked like ugly, you know. She looked like a pretty old grandma. I was like, yeah, your grandma's pretty. She's old. She looks like a normal person. You know, she was hot. She's good looking. Definitely had some legs, you know. But yeah, she's an old woman. She doesn't look bad. She looks like a human being. Can we like, is it okay that we look like human beings when we get older? Could we not be so materially obsessed that we can't accept that people get older? Yes, I know our culture is obsessed with youth and beauty. Probably harder for women than it is for men. Gotta be honest. I have Simpako eyes right now. Probably harder for women than it is for men. I think it's because my camera is slightly high. Like, I could lower the camera. Right at eye level. That's really where you want it. It's a little better. But I'm looking up at my image. Here we go. Right at. See, I'm looking at myself. It's like right by the camera. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, let's do a live write. I'm going to get some soda. And you guys can listen to some more music for a minute. I'll put on some of the Zool music that I've been recording. We'll write for 15, 20 minutes. You will get a cool reveal for the story that I'm live writing. And then that'll be it. So let's be it for today. When we finish the story, then I'm gonna stream how to publish it, design a cover, do the layout, design the interior, the whole bit. Like we'll do every bit of design that you need to. Thing is, you can design your own book. Just keep it simple, stupid. If you're not like an expert graphic designer or something like that, it's not that hard. If you want really fancy interior design, you can always hire someone to do that. But I'll show you how to do it so that you don't have to spend that expense if you don't want to. All right, I'll be right back. Totally should have turned up the volume so people could hear what's going on, but anyway. Alright. We're back. I lost a bunch of people. I lost everybody. Alright, let's get this thing open here. This is as dim as it goes. Okay. Alright. I really need to come up with a title for this. Let's do a title. We're on scene 5. Okay. All right. Hello, cat. Hello. How is the cat? The cat is here. Here's the cat. What's up, Aurora? Are you a good cat? You are a cute cat. Pull this down a bit. Okay. Boop, 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 boop. That way everyone can see nicely what I'm doing here. Okay. Still here to play Mass Effect while listening. Man, the first Mass Effect game was so good. And people are like, Mass Effect 2 is really good. Mass Effect 3 is so bad. I'm like, Mass Effect 2 was really not very good. It just didn't have a plot. There was like, the plot was just not good. It just wasn't a good plot. It's all right. You know, the first one had an excellent plot and really good characters and great aesthetics. And the second one had good aesthetics. Not as good aesthetics as the first one, but, you know, sharper graphics. And the third one had, I think the third one had a good plot, but just didn't have an ending people really liked. It showed the sausage too much. How should I put it? It revealed to people that their decisions in the BioWare universe didn't really do anything, and that's what BioWare has always done. They've given people the illusion of choice. All right. Okay, there we go. All right. My hand froze. I got to slide over here. There we go. No better position. My hand froze. Let's see if I can actually, maybe just going to slide the frame over a little bit. That's better. A little more ergonomic. Kind of be in the center of the monitor. The more I play the Mass Effect trilogy, the more I feel like 2 is my least favorite. Yeah, it doesn't. Here's the big thing against Mass Effect 2. You don't need it. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't set anything up that's necessary for 3. It's just not a movie that's necessary. Sorry, not a movie. It's not a game. Like, its plot and its story are just not necessary, and it was a big step backward in gameplay as well. Gameplay of Mass Effect 2 was just not nearly as good as Mass Effect 1. And Mass Effect 3 had the same gameplay exactly as Mass Effect 2, almost like 1 for 1. It just wasn't as good. That's all. Just wasn't as good. All right. Okay. Let's see here. Yes. Urged. It held back by that fragile thread of humanity that was my own. What was the name you came up with? Murdrag. I elect to changing these names before I publish, by the way. I appreciate suggestions. I may want to change the name. I never know. I actually like how Mass Effect 3 accounts for all your decisions in the previous games by the point system for the final battle. I'm not sure how big a difference people expected decisions to make. The thing is like, for example, Dragon Age Origins. The decisions... Like, you're always fighting the archdemon at the end. And it's like, okay, you pick the werewolves over the elves. So the werewolves help you in the final battle instead of the elves. The final cutscene where, like, they give you, like, a rundown of what happened, that could be different depending on some things you did. But it always, the plot always plays out the same. It's about making you feel like what you're deciding matters. About it mattering to you at that moment. Like, I don't like these elves. I'm going to pick the werewolves. I don't like the elves, but I like the werewolves less. Whatever it's going to be. You can even let the zombies overrun the town. You can actually run away from the battle and the zombies will kill everyone in the town when you come back. Pretty funny. You can decide to do that. I always liked the subtle things that they did in Dragon Age Origins like that. But at the end of the day, you are always playing out the same plot. Pull up some more music here. Let's get it going. All right. I struck flesh, but what? The blow barely registered. Yeah, I haven't been playing Baldur's Gate because, like, I can't play with the kids around and my monitor faces out. It's not like I can go in here and just play it. You know? Unfortunately. That's how it is when you get older. Alright. Put this over here. Let's get the chat out of the way. That's how it works. Flopped about like reeds in a stiff wind. A little bit more quiet. Hint of disgust. I have a Steam Deck. I was one of the first people to get a Steam Deck. They're great. Doesn't always solve that problem. So I have to like, I don't have a space where I can go and like do adult stuff that much, you know? Mostly I just play when my kids are asleep, but it's also my work time, like my workout time, you know? I'll game a little bit each day just to like relax. That's about it. this guy would know what noodles are. I said reeds. I need something else that's like floppy. So, you know, or like loose ropes. My limbs were like loose ropes. Either figure. Yeah, we're kind of explore things here, or explain things here. I'm gonna think about how to. I gotta think for a second about how I'm gonna do this before I peace out. Yeah. We'll say this in a minute. Imbue. That I misspelled imbue. Misspelled gripped as griped. She griped it. Gripped it. I could not speak. It's a half minute, yeah. Say it is likely. All right. That's a fun piece. I need a name for her. I don't know if I want to give her like a Germanic name or a more Latin name, because I'm imagining her as like a foreigner to the north, so thinking a more Latinish name. Aurelia. That's literally my daughter's name, so I'm not going to name her that. My daughter's spelled with an A, though. But we could do something like this, like Argentia. Which means silver. She's an old woman. Silver's good, right? Argentia laughed. concluded. There we go. Ah, the mighty M dash. So that little long dash, you put that in your documents. It's Alt 0151. You got to use it as an author. That's a very good piece of punctuation. Does any man remember that? Oh, I should bring up another song. Just kind of get into this. That's a good one. Dark Spaces. Oh, let's pull up the new one from the channel. I put up another one the other day called Stream. Here we go. Here we go. All ambient rock, some solos and stuff. The boy's name. Ruland. Wait, was it Ruland? Yeah, Ruland. All right. Okay. Let's drop his name a little earlier. All right. Just want to get those names out there so people have like a name associated with the person. I like to take your time getting into it, stuff like that with the scene, but it's good to have that happen a little bit earlier in the scene. Speaking of this, like I looked over on YouTube and it's like, after 10 years, it's time to stop making videos. I'm really compelled to see these. Like, what's the justification? Because most people that are online, I know this has nothing to do with this scene, and I need to finish the scene, but I just thought about this. It's like, there's no, where do you exit an online career? You know? Like, where do you say, like, I'm done doing this social media thing, this online thing? Here's a video of me. Me watching myself, listening to myself, talking about myself. And look, there's a stream. David Stewart, this guy's streaming right now. Crazy. You know, what makes like YouTubers, like I remember Homestar Runner from like, and now at this point, like 20 years ago. Those guys stopped doing it eventually and like rode off into the sunset and did something else. Like, that feels really rare now. You know? Like, I don't know when you decide to do that. Like, do you do it because every channel has kind of like a life and a death cycle, and sooner or later YouTubers either kind of fade and then they make a video about how like YouTube isn't giving the money anymore and it's just kind of sad, or they just somewhere along the way, like, where do you decide that you're done and you need to do a different job? Like, people normally are changing jobs every couple years, but like YouTubers stick around trying to do this for 10 years. You know, at a certain point, it's like, do you do a different job? Do you stop and do a different channel? Like, what do you do? You know? How do you get where you're going? Right? Like, most people are okay quitting a job. Oh, I quit my teaching job. I did something else. But it doesn't seem to work with YouTubers. I don't know what the deal is. All right, let's finish this up. YouTubers work for themselves, so maybe the transition is hard. Yeah, there's an idea with a business that it's going to grow to a point where it's successful and you're making a lot of money. But the thing about YouTube is that, like, it's not like a plumbing business. Like, you build up a plumbing business and eventually maybe you hire more plumbers and the business has like a growth curve, and you open up, maybe you build a business with lots of plumbers, but you can't really do that well with YouTube. I mean, you can, but it's so much harder to do that, you know? What I see a lot is I see a lot of YouTubers who kind of get up to a level where they can make a living doing whatever they're doing on YouTube. And then when that falls off, it's traumatic, because it's in a normal job, you go to work and you get fired. If they don't want you anymore, you get fired. But when YouTube doesn't want you anymore, you don't get fired. You just get kind of delisted in the algorithm. And it's not like they shut the faucet off and you have to go find a new job. It's like the flow of money slowly decreases. Your viewers get bored, they stop watching. YouTube's not showing your videos, so you're not getting new viewers into your channel. And even though you have 100,000, used to be you needed 100,000 subscribers to make a living doing YouTube. Now you need 1 million. And even then, if you have 1 million, they stop watching, you're not going to make any money. And there's no clean break. There's no way for you to say, okay, I'm going to go do something else with my time. It's not just that they make a living, but they did not think ahead and diversify their revenue streams while they had that big flood of it from YouTube. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I do a lot of stuff, right? I do YouTube, I write books, I do music, I do blogs, I do everything, right? Because, I remember there was this point where like YouTube reduced my views by 90% in like 1 week. And at the time that was big, because that's basically going from making like $1,500 a month to making like $200 a month. It was really like all the money got shut off. That wasn't my main source of income, and I didn't rely on that money at all. But it was like, whoa, overnight, YouTube's like, no one's going to watch your videos now. We won't show them to subscribers. No one's going to watch it. Like, it was like one day to the next, views fell off a cliff. They changed something. They delisted my channel, whatever they wanted to do. It's all right. It happens, right? So, if you're a person that's like at 1 million and that happens, what do, right? Like, you got to have something else going on, or you have to stop and go find a job. And the really crappy thing is, like, once you start doing this, especially for someone who has like millions of YouTube subscribers, in some ways you can never have a normal job again. People won't hire you. You have too many opinions on the internet. They'll get in trouble for hiring you. It's too weird. You get too many. There's too much baggage hiring like a former YouTuber. Being a YouTuber is a self-employment and has a comfort level beyond even most self-employment. It's hard to give that up and move on to something else. Well, I mean, it depends. Like, if you have 1 million subs and you're comfortable with that life, yeah, it's really hard. For people that are like at 100,000 subs and like barely making it in YouTube, it's like, it's hard. You go to just making nothing. And at what point do you do it? Because you feel like, okay, well, my views are going down. What do I do to bring them back up? There's rarely a thought that's like, oh, my views are going down. Maybe it's time to move on. Nobody ever just calls it quits. Like they do the boogie thing where like they just continue to decline and decline until they, are bankrupt, I guess. Because they set their lifestyle at their highest setting. That's also a problem, right? It's like if you're making $10,000 a month, you set your lifestyle to be a $10,000 a month lifestyle. Then when things drop to $2,000, $1,000, you don't have any savings to fall back on while you find another job. You want to find another job, you're like, oh, you're that YouTuber. I know about you. Aren't you a Nazi or something? You're not getting hired. It's a problem. Problem for a lot of people. But I would admire like YouTubers that are able to say, I've done everything I can do on YouTube. I'm ready to move on. Do something else, right? This is part of my business. I do, but see, for me, like I just do different things with the same YouTube channel. So, I stopped talking about movies a long time ago because I just can't really afford the time and effort to go see a movie, and I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy modern blockbuster movies, and then I've also figured out that like reviewing movies, it's not, depending on the kind of movie, it's not the content that sells my books. It just isn't, Talking about books sells the books, but like talking about movies, it brings in subscribers sometimes, but then they don't buy anything else from me, so they're like a low value viewer. No offense to anybody who doesn't buy anything from me, but you know, somebody who views the video, especially with an ad blocker on, is basically giving me attention but zero money. Somebody who views it with an ad blocker off is giving me a very tiny amount of money for each view. But what I want are people that are like connect with me as a writer, and then they want to read my books, and then they buy them and read them. And then, you know, they're a lot more valuable viewer. And not all viewers are created equally. So anyway, I'm trying to think about how I'm going to finish this little scene here. Red Letter Meter and Nostalgia Critic are not what they used to be, though. That's the other thing. They're probably not doing as well as they were, you know. I think of like Shadiversity. It's like made a video about how basically he wasn't making money like he used to. It sucks, man, but like eventually you run out of stuff to say on a YouTube channel too, right? If your shtick is like talking about historical castles, like eventually you run out of that content. Like I saw that Metatron like started up a gaming channel, a retro gaming channel, which is very cool. Like he and I would have that interest in common among history and things like that. So you take the time to build up the next thing when you see the main thing maybe is getting some resistance. You know what I mean? So that's another reason why I have the music channel. So, you know, maybe by next year, I'll have enough momentum with that it can be a viable source of income. I'll have enough products out there and have enough stuff on Spotify that people are going to listen to it and hear what's up, you know. You get that idea. So anyway, I'm gonna figure out how to close this. What is this? You stopped doing the anime reviews, which sucks because I liked it. No one watched them. I might do more of them. But like watching a whole anime series, for instance, it's just a lot of investment. I don't always have time for it. You know, I could talk about a couple others that I've seen, do like retro reviews and stuff. A lot of anime is really boring, though. Like I watched an episode of Bastard. Really stupid. Like, no, I was like, why would anyone watch this? But there's going to be somebody who thinks that's cool, like the dumb metal references and that kind of stuff. But, you know, there are good ones out there, and I wanted to, like, take the time to, like, review some of the good ones. What's the new ones, like Frerin? I know, I think Delicious in Dungeon actually came out with an anime, but I have only read the manga. So, you know, I'm not sure what to say about that one. And I realized How do I spell her name? Something else there. Let's do this one. And then we'll finish up here. It'll be like 3 hours. That's a long stream. Too long a stream. Let's finish this up. How much did we write so far? It's over here. About there. 1,200 words. Okay. That's good for today. My mind was in empty space. You are an echo of a man. A lot of anime now seems to be style or fan service of substance. Animators can't make the things they want to unless they get funding by miracle. Get a lot of filler comedies and style by majority, yeah. That's how it goes. There's still good. It's still better than like a lot of American media. It's certainly aesthetically. You know. I'm gonna use that word uncanny. Yeah, the beauty of our time is that nothing new could be created, and we'd still never run out of stuff. You know, if you only played games from before 2007, you'd probably never run out of games for the rest of your life to play. Turn this light off. It's getting way too... Now I'm disappeared. I'm going to go with auto. All right. Noisy, but it'll work for what we're doing. I don't have a light in my eyes. All right. If he really did so. All right, that's enough for today. So we got a good little reveal going. Written about 1,500 words, maybe. And, yeah. Let's see. How much did we write? Yeah, 1,700 words. That's good for today. A little late. I'm going to call it here. Thanks for watching so much. Let's cue up some more music here. And then we'll get going. My camera froze for some reason. Lovely. I'm frozen in time. Let's check this out. Is it this? That's it. Auto exposure kills the camera. All right. Thanks, folks. I'll see you all next time. Have a good one. This will be up on the Patreon, the Substack, the Ko-Fi, if you want to read this installment. All of them are up there, so if you're a member on any of those platforms, you can read those. And I'll put it as a member-only post on YouTube, too, so you can read all the live write stuff as we go here. So thanks so much, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you next time. I notice the viewers tend to fall off when I start live writing because I feel like it's a little boring, but that's okay. I think some people enjoy that. They just enjoy chatting. So, yeah, I'll check you all next time, and have a great, great day.